Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Ladies and gentlemen, it makes all kinds of sense. We're sitting in the blast furnace right now, and guess what? If you're within the sound of our voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, subscribe. Keep subscribing, hit that subscribe button, give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, the Threads, and, well, God knows where else, at In the Seats, for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. While it would be easy for you to mistake that we're recording this outside today, we are not. In the midst of the heat dome bubble that North America finds itself under, we are sweltering next to a fan and an air conditioner and just trying to keep it together. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be pumping out content for you. There's still plenty to do, plenty to listen to as we sweat. But please sweat with us. Stay cool, stay safe, obviously, first and foremost. But we're diving into the world of Apple TV and one of our favorite recent shows, Silo. And with the Emmy Awards and consideration coming up, we had the unique pleasure of talking with several behind-the-scenes artisans who worked on this show. First up, we had the unique pleasure of talking with the composer of the show, the one and only Atli Örvarsson. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly or correctly, or who knows. But we had a great talk just about developing the music and working on the show and all that sort of fun stuff. But if you don't already have Apple TV Plus, go check it out, because it's such a great service. There is ton and ton of good stuff on there, like Silo, like so many other shows. But like I said, we're going to deep dive into Silo today. We're talking several people who worked on that show coming up episodes. So if you like Silo, please stay tuned here. And I'm babbling. It's the heat probably, but that's why I'm babbling. But you know what? Go watch Silo on Apple TV Plus. It's fantastic. But first, enjoy our conversation with Atli Örvarsson, the composer of the music of the show. It's a great music and it's a great show. So go do all that and enjoy our conversation, because it's a darn good one. Well, Atli, obviously, first off, just thank you so much for the time today. I appreciate this.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Now, I mean, congrats on the show. I absolutely love it. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, because it always feels like when it comes to music and composing, they may bring you in early on, or they may have like lock picture and go, okay, you've got 6 weeks, give us music. Like, where did you come in during this whole process?
It was kind of early on with the pilot, really. I mean, I read the script for the pilot. Morton started sort of prepping me just through conversation about what was going to happen with this. And but then, yeah, basically, it was the classic case of, and then, all of a sudden the phone rings, you need music now, and so the very first kind of, music that I wrote for the show, I had to come up with really, really quickly. And, sometimes that's a wonderful thing, because it's like you just got to go with first instinct naturally. And basically within a week, I had the main themes of the show ready, because they had to be ready.
Now, I mean, on something like this, because I love that it has like sort of a little bit of the sci-fi flourish, but it's not obvious. It's definitely more grounded, at least from my perspective, than maybe something a little bit more sort of Blade Runner-y or anything like that. But I'm kind of curious, when you're composing for a show like this, that you're really building from the ground up. Like what, like, do you just go with your gut or do you do research? Like, where does the process kind of start?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think I hate to say this because generally my mantra is, we get into the world and have time to think about it. But in this case, I just didn't have that time. And so I was sort of like, okay, where do I begin? And so, the for the in this particular case, I tried to imagine what it might be like to live in a silo on the ground. And the first thing that sort of occurred to me that there must be some static noises. There must be some like mechanical sounds or maybe air conditioner, whatever it is, the ventilation system. There has to be something. So literally the first thing I did was to fire up a couple of analog synthesizers that I have around the studio and just start making weird kind of almost like old radio static noises. And
Hmm,
I know that sounds really bizarre, but that was kind of the thing that put me on the path to figure out that I'd possibly be. And I mean, what's amazing about a show like Silo is that it is, 100% complete world building, and that applies to the music just as well, just as much as it does to, the characters, the story, and all of that. So, what is the musical world of something like Silo? And to me, it was that sort of, you know, basically the people living in the silo are alive because of machinery, because of engineering, really. But at the same time, I mean, I would imagine that claustrophobia and just the feeling of living in a place like that must be just overwhelming. So it just came down to a few basic ideas, the sound of machines, the sound of loneliness, and kind of this oppressive claustrophobia. And also one sort of very important aspect of it was when I started getting footage, the shots that were supposed to depict hundreds of levels of silo and thousands of people living there were all green screen. There was no CGI. And I think in a funny way, I started overcompensating and trying to make the music sound bigger than it possibly, should have been. But anyway, I mean, it was sort of that, those were kind of the ingredients that influenced and informed this in the beginning.
for sure, for sure. No, I mean, I'm curious because, I mean, obviously you are a sort of multifaceted musician and you've done a myriad of different things. But I mean, anytime I've ever had a chance to talk to someone who composes for film and TV, it really does feel like this kind of work for a musician is where there's room to play maybe a little bit more. Like you're still storytelling, but there's a bit more almost freedom to it than maybe sort of traditional songwriting or even working in like sort of conducting or collaborating with somebody else. It definitely feels like film and TV composing has a bit more of a, well, less rules, maybe is probably the best way to put it. And I'm curious, what was it about film and TV composing that made you want to start getting into it?
Good question. I mean, I I think that, film music, when it's the most successful, is sort of, greater than the sum of its parts, if you will, because, know, what really, okay, let me rewind a bit. I was at Berklee College of Music back in the 90s. Didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I was doing jazz piano, was a musician. And then I took an introductory course to film music. And the first time I ever put music against film, I just experienced this sort of feeling of alchemy, really, because it's sort of, you, when you, if the music works with the images, both become better. The music becomes better, the film becomes better. So in a way, I was an incredibly lucky young man to find what I wanted to do kind of for the rest of my life at a very young age. And it's just like it really just spoke to me, this marriage of images and music. And then, as you keep doing it and I'm lucky and blessed with having an actual career in this. And it just sort of keeps expanding. And I think for something like Silo, the absolute key to me was to make the music feel personal, and to make it feel like how do you relate to these people? How do you relate to their, you know, trials and tribulations? Because it's such an alien idea of living, in a metal enclosure in the ground. So I think, in a funny way, it became than anything, it became about emotion. It became this quest to kind of capture what it would feel like living down there. And it's funny, I actually learned about the music for Silo by reading an interview with Graham Yost, and which sounds really bizarre because I mean he's the showrunner,
Yeah.
but it was Morton Tildum, who I've worked with before on Defending Jacob, who got me involved. And Graham said in an interview, and I'm sort of loosely quoting him, he's like, the idea of having kind of a Scandinavian Nordic sound to the music seemed appropriate to life in the silo. And I had sort of been thinking the same thing, which is that, growing up in a rather small town north of Iceland, I think that might have been the best possible preparation for writing music for people living in an isolated place like the silo.
Well, I love that. And I mean, it again, it adds to that personal element, like you were saying, that makes it so compelling. And also, which again, to one of the other points, just allows for something to stand out, but also have a marriage as well. Because I mean, obviously, we all love Blade Runner and Vangelis, but I mean, Blade Runner is still awesome and Vangelis is still awesome. But we put the two together, they're even better. And it's just one of those things where we never really understand sort of how beautiful the marriage of the two can be until you see it. And I mean, I'm curious on a job like this, or even any job, like, because obviously when you're composing and putting music together, you're a bit in your own bubble. And I mean, I'm always curious, when does sort of that creative payoff come off to go, okay, it's working. I'm doing the right thing. Because I mean, I can imagine there's going to be a certain degree of not knowing until you know.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good point. And it is, I don't know, at the beginning of every project, it's always just this frightening sort of leap into the unknown because you don't know what's going to work. And I mean, especially for something like this, yes, I mean, your references are, 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 are 100% on point. Blade Runner, sort of like this futuristic dystopian world. But, for a good example is I am using a lot of piano, and like, how do you justify using piano in the silo?
Hmm.
Or like, you don't see any pianos. It doesn't seem like they took any pianos down there. But for me, I was just like, I don't know, I suppose there's kind of like there's logical choices and there's emotional choices. And sometimes you just go with your gut, and sometimes you just have to get something together really, really quickly. And there happened to be a piano right next to me. But some think it's almost like a happy accident because I feel like in a weird way, this sort of slightly imperfect upright piano kind of just works with the sort of almost cyberpunk technology that the silo uses to function.
Mm.
And as I said, sometimes it's just happy accidents. And obviously, I use synthesizers, I use electronics because it just makes sense in the genre. But in many ways, I feel like the most successful music that I wrote for the show, for season one anyway, were like string trio and piano, because there's just something about that loneliness of that seems to resonate, because at the end of the day, human beings, and it's that juxtaposition between the inner world and the outer world is very, very compelling. But at the end of the day, you're telling a story. We're making cinema on a small screen in this case, but a cinema nevertheless, and it's about making the audience feel for those people.
For sure, for sure. No, I mean, just to put a bow on this, it's a silly question, but it's one I always like to ask. Was there a moment sort of in your younger life where you saw something and it made you sort of have the light bulb go off to understand sort of the beauty of the marriage between the image and the music?
Oh, there were many, to be honest with you. I think probably the first one was Star Wars. As a 7, 8-year-old kid, seeing that, experiencing that as a child was incredibly powerful. Uh, um, the Big Blue, Le Grand Bleu, the French
Oh,
film by
great
Luc
choice.
Besson, that
Yeah.
was incredibly powerful for me. Cinema Paradiso. There's just so many moments in my life where that happened. Yes. So yeah, it's I could probably go on and on, to be honest.
Cinema Paradiso, man, that's such a great example, though. But I mean, honestly, Atlee, just keep up the good work. And I mean, honestly, again, thank you so much for the time today, and congrats on the show. Keep it up, man.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, and yeah, thanks so much. All the best.
Likewise, same to you. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.